Okay, hello and welcome to MSUA Game Changers webcast, where we speak with satellite and mobile connectivity thought leaders about industry trends and share what you need to know about the future of mobile satellite communications. I'm your host, Roger Lanctot, and I'm excited to introduce Ian Itz, Executive Director, Internet of Things line of business at Iridium Communications. Ian is responsible for managing the day-to-day business operations, product strategy, and overall performance of the Iridium IoT portfolio, the company's fastest growing sector. Iridium is an MSUA member and winner of the MSUA 2024 Innovation Award for Industrial IoT Satellite Innovation, thanks to the launch of the revolutionary Certus 9704 module and development kit. This transformational new module features Iridium Messaging Transport, IMT technology, provides larger file sizes and faster message speeds than previous Iridium IoT modules, delivering data, picture, and audio messages serving industrial IoT, machine, and remote personnel use cases. Ian, we hear a lot about IoT these days, but it sounds like it is breaking new ground. I will never forget visiting your meeting room at 2025 and being overwhelmed by the sheer multitude of devices on offer. No doubt many of them are in your portfolio. Tell me a little about how you got started in the industry and Iridium's journey in IoT.
Yeah, absolutely, Roger. Thanks for having me on the show today. I certainly appreciate it. So, in terms of kind of where I started, it primarily began with a small company called AeroAstro, and we were building small satellites for the Navy and the Air Force. And that company happened to also build the appliques for the Global Star ground station. So this was in about 2010 timeframe. So we were acquired by a company called Comtech Mobile Data, and then that company moved over to Germantown with a small force of us from that previous company. And then from there, I joined Iridium. So I've been part of that Iridium IoT team for the last 12 years. I came on as a product manager originally, moved into the sales department, and now I'm running the organization as it relates to the IoT business for Iridium. And so, as you mentioned, that's primarily supporting our global customers, that are doing a variety of applications within IoT, and that could be, VMS to oil and gas to heavy equipment. But primarily, my role is supporting those customers globally, in terms of their IoT deployments, and we're providing core modules and core network, and that's really where we stop, and we leave the rest up to our partners. And so we certainly rely on that niche capability, that niche expertise that our partners bring to the market, and we couldn't do it without them. And so that's really kind of what we do from an IoT perspective. As you mentioned, it's vast, it's varied. There are, multiple sets of devices that Iridium supports now, new devices that we'll be supporting here in the not too distant future. But again, it's really about supporting customers, giving them a variety of options as it relates to their connectivity from a satellite perspective. And so that's really our calling card and what we're all about.
Is that something of a part of the challenge? Because I really was overwhelmed by the sheer number of devices that I'm looking at, and from my perspective, it's difficult for me to just comprehend the scale and scope of that. Assuming a lot of them are running very similar applications, they're just in a different type of device. But help me conceptualize or contextualize what I'm looking when I see all those devices.
Yeah, so primarily, our strength is around low aperture antennas or small aperture antennas, battery powered devices. And so a lot of what you'll see, as it relates to my business unit, are going to be small portable devices that are typically on the move. So a lot of what we do are going to be tracking devices. So they'll be either battery powered or a combination of battery and solar. So that's a big application for us as it relates to security and safety in markets outside of the US, right? So telematics is a rather large growing vertical for us, and that is really around the tracking of assets, the tracking of people, and secure and somewhat compromised locations. A lot of what you'll see is devices that are in the ocean. So we do a lot of things around sustaining of our global oceans, and so you'll see a lot of devices, whether it be from a scientific community, science and research in the northern latitudes where Iridium has great coverage, to monitoring fishing globally, right? To ensure that fishermen are fishing in the appropriate waters. We do a lot of catch reporting, So you'll see, a strong presence of our IoT business in the maritime sector, oil and gas exploration. That's also, a big market for Iridium as it relates to more along the lines of tracking, right? Again, as we talked about, really, it's knowing where my asset is, knowing a particular level on a particular tank, and understanding, where my assets are really for operational efficiency. So that extends into OEM, and so we're a big player in OEM as well. And so we've got large customers both, in North America and Asia, and they're outfitting all of their devices with satellite connectivity so that they can, have communication with those devices, in the field, as well as, ensuring that they're coming back for maintenance of those devices.
And when we're calling it to the 9704, it sounds a little prosaic, not a very sexy name. Can you bring this device to life a little bit? What's the backstory?
Yeah, so the backstory of that is it's the continuation of our existing and highly successful SBD modules. And so when Iridium first turned towards IoT, or what we called M2M back then, we did so with very small modules, the 9602 and the 9603. And so those are surface mount devices that are integrated into, as I mentioned, very small products. And so the evolution of those devices and the service is what we've recently launched this past November, which is called IMT, or Iridium Messaging Transport. And with that, we launched kind of the evolution of our module story, and we released a new module, which is the 9704. And so that device is really purpose built for battery powered applications. So we do a lot around power handling, power management. But also this new device allows us to send messages that are significantly larger than what we have done in the past. And so this now enables customers like Garmin, for example, to now leverage that device and that service and empower things like the ability to send messages that contain images as well as voice snippets, right? And so it allows for kind of more robust data across the board, and whether it be in personal communications, again, where Iridium is has a strong foothold in that market, to industrial IoT, and all the applications that kind of sit under that umbrella. And so for us, it's really evolution. It's moving towards kind of a more open standard in our approach. From our developer kit, as you mentioned earlier, Roger, we've got this great new kit that's Arduino friendly, allows you to bring your own processor to the game or use ours. But everything is really kind of self-contained in that unit, so that the developer can get up and running and on the network within a matter of just minutes of receiving that kit. So we really spent a lot of time in not only kind of the new service and the new module, but also creating a environment that was super friendly, that anybody that has experience opening any type of consumer product could hook up to your computer and get running, as I mentioned, within a matter of minutes. And so that capability of being able to talk to a satellite in real time with no latency on a fairly standard platform, we think is very powerful, and should allow people, organizations that haven't necessarily played with satellite, the opportunity to do that in a much more kind of hands-on, quick, easy, reliable way. And so, yeah, we're really proud of that new device. And as I mentioned before, I think it's just an evolution of what we've done. We hadn't released a new module in quite some time, specifically as it relates to IoT. And so this was a great milestone for Iridium in terms of being able to get this new product out. And it's already, seeing some great moves forward with some powerful developers getting behind it. And so we've seen just some very interesting new applications that haven't been part of our ecosystem in the past. And it's just great to be able to offer a product, see the innovation that comes out of the market, and then be able to work with those partners and bring those products to market.
Well, it's funny because it doesn't even sound like IoT, right? Because the capability is much greater. We're not, monitoring methane emissions or something, or, tracking, or just getting a pulse on some device, whether it's functioning or. What are a couple of use case scenarios that have been opened up?
Yeah, so one interesting one that we're working on right now is with one of our partners called Heimdall Power out of Norway, and what they're doing is they're putting their product, which is called the Neuron, on power lines, and obviously those can be in quite remote locations, quite harsh environments, and these nodes that they're putting on the power lines allow them to monitor the transmission that's going through those cables, as well as kind of the life or the health of those particular lines, whether there's tilt in the line or whether there's corrosion on the line. And so that's a new application for Iridium, right? As I mentioned, we've done, so many different applications over the years that are, fairly interesting and fairly unique. And just by virtue of having this new device with just a little bit more capability, it opens up some additional markets for us, right? So the name of the game is still very small, still operating in a very, rough environment, not only from a weather perspective, but you can imagine all of the RF noise that's going on when you're close to a power line. So, Heimdall has had to engineer a product that is, savvy enough to be able to get past all of the barriers that they've got, just from a environment perspective, and create a very powerful product using this 9704. And it's only through the device's additional capabilities of being able to send more data and also being extremely power friendly, or energy friendly, that this type of application is enabled, right? They need to send more data than what we would traditionally be offered in our SBD platform. And so they move up to the next offering that we have, which is this new IMT service and this new device that allows them to do what they want to do.
Yeah, I dare say it might find some use in California, but we don't need to get into that in too much detail. Um, but it seems like we're kind of redefining IoT if we're adding all this capability. Does that category definition still have meaning? Obviously, it's in your title. You own it, but your scope is expanding.
Yeah, I think
What's happening?
Yeah, I think what we want to do there is really just have kind of offerings, across the board, right? So whether it be more powerful offerings to the 9704 that allow users to send kind of more rich data. We're also investing in our core platforms, and so we'll have a new transceiver, a new device coming out, that caters to our traditional IoT users in that small, sensor type data application. And so, really, our goal is to offer a variety of different services because IoT is quite large in terms of its breadth, right? It can be, very small devices sending very small, infrequent pieces of data, but also on the other end of the scale, there's applications that are, more power and more, data intensive. And so we want to be able to have options from a module and from a service perspective for all of those applications. And then as we move into NTN, and moving towards a more standards-based approach with our 3GPP implementation of NB-IoT, we're offering yet another avenue for our customers to explore with Iridium. So we'll have options, both at the very low end of the market, the NB-IoT side of the market, which will be extremely small data, maybe not as reliable as some of our other services. But then we'll be stepping into SBD, which has been around for quite some time and will continue to be around, and then moving into more higher value services, which are those IMT services. So our goal is really to have both proprietary and standard options at all ends of the spectrum that Iridium services, right? We're not a broadband play. We're very much built for IoT. That's really the best use case of our network. And so what we really want to do is just have a variety of IoT options for our partners at all of the levels, right? So if you really just want very small chunks of data, we can handle that. If you want to send images and voice snippets and more situational awareness of your application, we can do that as well. It's really just about having options is really the way.
At the risk of betraying my ignorance, FD stands for?
Short burst data is the
Thank
original
you.
one, so that's SBD. Yep. So that's our. I live this world, and so sometimes I forget that not everybody gets the acronyms. But yeah, SBD is our original IoT platform. So short burst data, and is really what built our IoT business. And then we move into Iridium Messaging Transport, which is this new IMT service, and that's kind of the evolution of that same service.
And when you talk about Iridium messaging, is that a standards-based or proprietary solution?
Yeah, so SBD and IMT are both or I'm sorry, both proprietary implementations. So those are Iridium waveform on Iridium hardware. As we move towards, this new endeavor that we're taking on, which is NTN Direct, we start to carve out a few bands of the network to be able to support a standards-based approach. And so we will have, as I mentioned before, proprietary uh, options for customers, for those that aren't necessarily too interested with being on a standards based approach, but we'll also have options for those customers that want to be on the latest Sony module or the latest Nordic module or what have you. to be able to take advantage of 3G, PP, NTN, specifically NB-IoT, as it relates to satellite.
And Iridium's not the only organization looking to or talk about IoT being the strongest growth sector. Um, it seems unusual to me because it's not new, right? I mean, we've been connecting things for a very long time, but evidently a lot of things that still need to be connected, and there's new ways of connecting. How do you sort of explain the growth in this sector?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it right on the head there. I think, for many years, satellite IoT was fairly stable in terms of the offerings and what was, available to consumers and organizations to be able to use. And so, over time, I think we've now migrated to obviously having a variety of players in this space, offering different services. And so I think for the types of value and the types of services that we offer, you know, it's really just about telling customers and explaining to customers that really this type of IoT has been around for some time. We've been selling this IoT, we've been supporting this type of IoT for many years. I think now that we start to see some of these new players in space, it's reinvigorated kind of what that means and the capabilities. And so I think from being able to explain it to partners, it's very similar to what we just talked about, which is Iridium's goal is to have options that are both kind of our legacy options that are always going to be around for partners, but also have capabilities that are more standards based in the way that they're delivered. And so having those options for our partners is really the best way that we can offer IoT and continue to do so. And so I think that's really the main message that we try to stay is that Iridium has been doing this type of IoT for quite some time. And as I mentioned, it used to be called M2M. Now it's IoT. But we'll continue to be, participating in this, whether it's through existing services or some of the new things that we have coming online. But it's really just an evolution, right? We just need to continue to evolve and continue to have offerings that make sense to people.
And you alluded a little bit to what might be on, but as we wrap up the conversation here, what next? What is coming? I mean, I'm assuming more bandwidth, greater capability. Maybe it's lower cost. I don't know. I have a conversation around technology without AI creeping in. I don't know if it enters into any of your conversations, but what's next for Iridium?
Yeah, so for what's next for IoT specifically for Iridium are those two things. We've got a new module coming from Nordic, and we've got a new module coming from uBlox Trident out of California. And so both of those modules are meant to drive costs down from a chip perspective, right? So I think what you'll be seeing from Iridium is continued cost reduction in IoT, both at the standard and proprietary level. So new modules, much lower cost, new capabilities. As you mentioned, IoT and AI, obviously that is a kind of a big buzzword. IoT is leveraged a lot by our partners, or AI is leveraged a lot by our partners, and has been for quite some time. We talk about edge computing and doing a lot of those things to help reduce costs, and that's something that users of satellite are quite akin and used to, right? Is being able to optimize their data streams to be able to send that over the satellite link. And so that's no different than what they're doing today, right? It's being able to optimize their data for that particular link. And that's what they'll continue to do. And so I think from an AI perspective, you'll continue to see that in IoT applications so that they're able to, again, do a lot of that computing at the edge, not have to send all that data over the satellite link, and then optimize both from a cost and data usage perspective. And so I think that's really the way that AI plays into our operation. It's primarily leveraged by our partners. We'll continue to support those offerings. And then, as I mentioned, our new modules will be used in conjunction with, the goodness that our partners are bringing, both from a machine learning perspective, from an AI perspective, but then wrapping in, the Iridium satellite component into that and creating kind of these really super value IoT applications that, as we talked about before, take on a variety of different types and, go after a variety of different niche markets.
And if I want to keep up with Iridium, find out about the latest developments, newest products, newest services, where do I?
So Iridium.com is a great place to check out everything that we're doing from an IoT perspective. You can see all of our services. We're obviously delving a lot more into YouTube and making sure that we've got a lot of content there as well in terms of our devices and our getting started guides. And so you should be able to see stuff there. And then for the developers, if you want to dive into documentation kind of right away, all of the stuff around the 9704 documentation libraries is all available on GitHub. And so that's a free, open source environment that people can get right into and start to get under the hood of Iridium kind of right away. So there's a variety of ways, whether it's GitHub, Iridium.com, or check us out on YouTube in terms of the content that we have there around the 9704 and those products. Those are typically the best place to find us.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Ian. So I want to thank the Mobile Satellite Users Association for hosting these sessions. You can learn more about the at msua.org. You can learn how to get our weekly newsletter that gives you updates on what's happening in the industry and shares information about upcoming events. And you can also find how to become a member. And we look forward to seeing you next time on MSU's Game Changer webcast. Ian, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Roger. Once again, good seeing you, and thanks for having us on the show. Certainly appreciate it.